It's just, to me, like, as religion's place in society has become minimized, these people have just latched onto something else. It's like there are, and I'm not surprised by this, but it's like people, just generally speaking, need some sort of crutch or something in their life that gives their life meaning, because they themselves can't find it otherwise. But without a shadow of a doubt, it's the exact same thinking. I mean, it's basically we're dealing with the same, with people who have the same kind of religious zealotry. They've just replaced Jesus with Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, yeah, but it's true. And I think even like the TV starting to have a less of effect on people, like sitting there and watching news programs and, the fear and all that sort of stuff. Like the generations that are coming up now, they're more internet based, where they're free to pick and choose what they want to watch and what they want to read. And so, I think the grip slowly coming off, so they're probably always trying to find a new way to sort of hold everyone back or keep them sort of doing what they want.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to episode 154 of Into the Necrosphere. On this week's episode of the podcast, I am catching up with the beastly Rob Watkins of Black Lava out of Australia. He and I got together to talk about their fantastic debut record, Soul Furnace, which will be dropped by the fine folks at Season of Mist on the 25th of November. We spoke about how the record was produced, how the band got together. We spoke about what life was like for him during the lockdown, and of course, as you can imagine, we also hit several other topics along the way. Straight after that conversation, don't go anywhere, because there is a new Darkthrone that has been released, and of course, this would not be Into the Necrosphere if I did not give you the definitive verdict on that record. Last week, I shared my first impressions of the advanced single they put out. Those impressions were not particularly positive, but will my final analysis surprise any of you? You will have to stay tuned and find out. Also, stay tuned after my review of the new Darkthrone, because it'll be time for my usual news, rants, and react segment. This week, we are listening to new music by Katatonia, by Destroyer666, and whoever else dared to release a single over the last 7 days that can fall under my intense scrutiny. If you're new to the podcast, thank you very much for checking out the show. If you like what you hear, this is your cue to elbow drop the subscribe button on your platform of choice, be that Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever else you consume podcasts from. Also, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And if you really want to show your love and support for the show, I have a Teespring store where you will find fashion-forward yet grim cult and necro merchandise. So check that out. Any money that I make on the Teespring store gets plowed straight back into the podcast. So also, friends, finally, as a reminder, and I do this every single week, and with good reason, my fellow horsemen of the podcast apocalypse, fine young men and outstanding content creators who you should be following and subscribe to. On a Monday, we've got Brandon Legion talking to horror movie producers, directors, writers, a veritable plethora of dignitaries and fine folks from the horror movie industry with the fantastic Horrorwolf 666 podcast. I drop the knowledge every Tuesday with Into the Necrosphere. On a Wednesday, Mike Hill brings you Everything Went Black. He returns on a Thursday alongside his co-hosts Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid with Necromaniacs. Reviews of horror movies, both old and new. And then on a Sunday, my friend Carl Haikara, the Reverend Carl Haikara, brings you the Devil's Message on the Lord's Day. And if you pay close attention, in the next 2 weeks, I'm actually on Solnox, Carl's podcast. We're going to be talking about celebrating the discography of one Glenn Danzig. And again, a couple of probably reasonably controversial opinions shared there, especially for those of you who feel that Glenn's entire discography is garbage, save the first 3 records. But I had a blast catching up with him, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy that episode. If you're not already subscribed to Solnox, definitely make sure that you change that post-haste. Speaking of which, I'm going to zip my lips and get on with the show. Welcome to the podcast for the first time ever, Mr. Rob Watkins of Black Lava. I saw that Season of Mist had signed you. I saw the announcement. You know, generally speaking, whenever I see a band from Australia, I'm almost immediately interested because I feel like the number of hits coming out of Australia when it comes to extreme music is substantial. So it's one of those countries I tend to be partial to. But equally, of course, you know, I hadn't ever heard of Black Lava before, and when I read the bio, this seems to be something that kind of sprung up as a result of you know, like-minded folks connecting over the course of lockdown. Would you have imagined that, you know, something I would imagine started off as a bit of a passion project has ended up signed to a, you know, kick-ass label like Season of Mist, and you're 3 music videos deep, including one we'll talk about in a little bit where you're parading around in the snow. It's it must be a pretty surreal, wild ride for you.
Yeah, it is, man. We've the band's probably not even 12 months old. Like we started probably this time last year, and I got a call from Dan, my drummer, and he's been, you know, because everyone been stuck at home, no one's playing shows because of COVID. So he's called me and said, me and Ben have been doing this little project at home. We've just been jamming, like nothing serious, just making riffs. And we can hear you on these songs. Like it's got you all over it. And I was sort of, because they're, you know, they're pretty like accomplished musicians, you know, they're very deep in the tech sort of prog sort of world, you know, and where my background's a lot different. So that's where I was a bit, oh, okay. And then they sent me some songs and I was like, oh yeah, it's sort of the stuff that I like to play, you know. And I think I listened to the first 30 seconds of the first song and I didn't even listen to it. I just rang him back and said, I'll do it. So yeah, and then they sent me like 4 tracks and I put lyrics to it, and then the songs just kept coming after that. And then yeah, so we just put it all together, and then we pretty well recorded it at the start of this year. And we sent it around, and then I think Dan got onto Kerpaloo in the States, and then I think he wrote back and said, look, I'm too busy, I don't have time, you know. And then a couple of weeks later, he's like, you're not going to believe it, there's a band just cancelled the exact dates that you guys wanted to record. So if you guys have got your shit together and the studio is good where you're going to record it, he sent us a list of things that he wanted, like the quality of the microphones to the gear that we were using. And so we had everything. So we recorded, sent it to him, and then we recorded the album in 5 days. And then we sent it to Kurt, and then he mixed it within another, I think it was 4 or 5 days. So it was a quick turnaround. And then, yeah, like once that was done, we got it mixed and mastered. And because Dan has already had a lot to deal with, a lot of dealings with Season of Mist. So he just sent it to those guys and a couple of other labels too, I think. But they just said, we'll pass it around the office, we'll see what everyone thinks, you know, we'll get back to you. So didn't hear from him for a couple of weeks. And then, yeah, I think Katie got in contact, or Sonia, one of the two, and said, look, yeah, you guys sound good. Like, we want to do your first record. So it was, yeah, like you said, a bit surreal. I was like, oh, holy shit. Like that was, you know.
It also shows, I think, how much the world has changed. I had Adam Agius of Alchemist on here about 4 or 5 months ago, and one of the things we spoke about was how much of a struggle it was for Alchemist to get signed in the old days. And now, granted, they were doing something that at the time I think was very unique and very different in the metal scene. But equally, I remember seeing them live and thinking to myself, like, if you guys didn't live in Australia, you would be one of the fucking biggest bands on the planet right now. They were just that tight and that good when you saw them live. And so it's cool for me to see that the distance doesn't really make a difference anymore. And in a weird sort of way, I feel like a lot of people are just I've over the last couple of years in particular, I've really woken up to how much great music is coming out of Australia, especially as I said earlier in this scene.
Yeah, yeah, we're pretty lucky here. Like you said, it has been one of those things because we're so far away. It's hard to, it's not, we can't just get on a plane and do like a European tour, like, the way that those guys do it. But we've just created our own little world down here where we play shows, and we've got so many bands, and we'll go to Sydney or Brisbane or Perth or play in Adelaide, and there's these little pockets where there's they've got their own little scenes going, and then once everyone gets to know each other, it's just created this little world down here. So it's been really good. Up until COVID, it was, I think 2019 was like the pinnacle. I remember going to I think it was one of the direct Dave Haley's little mini festivals that he does, and I think that 90% of the bands on the bill were from Melbourne, and there was 700 people in the room, and I was like, this is unreal. Like, for a town and for Australia, like, just to have people that are so into it and into the scene, it just helps, and it makes everyone, like, it pushes everyone along because they want to play. They want to, everyone's wanting to do better and be better. So I think that's probably had a lot to do with it too, for Australian bands making a bit more of a show on the world stage, I think.
I was about to say, so Australians, as I've come to know them personally, and also I'm a big rugby fan, so you get a sense of the Australian mindset when you see the Wallabies play rugby. Yeah. You guys are generally speaking you're a little bit like South Africans in the sense that you're like born with an innate sense of competition. I was going to say, does that come out in the way that the bands are towards each other? And I would imagine, from what I've seen so far, there's nothing toxic about it, but certainly you just touched on something now. I would expect in Australia bands kind of push each other, or at least you're inspired by each other to go, okay, they can do that, so we need to step up our game, either when we go play live or when we go to the studio. Is there that degree of competition in the scene and in Australia?
I think it's like, you go and there's bands that you go and see, like, say Earth Rock, for example, like, have this wall of tone. Like, you go and watch them, and I'm just like, holy shit, like, these guys sound amazing. And so everyone will nitpick, like, or Psychroptic or someone like that, where you listen to the riffing and stuff like that, and you'll go home and you'll just think, fuck, like, like, everyone sort of is coming out with their own thing. And I think it in a healthy way, like, I'd say that it does help. It pushes everyone along. Everyone wants to be sort of, stand out, because there's so many bands now here, like, there's thousands, like, so everyone's trying to do their part to sort of stand out from the rest and play what they want to play, and sort of I don't know, just come up with their own vibe. Yeah.
And you guys also weren't mucking about as far as who you got to mix and master the first record. I mean, Kurt Ballou, I think right now, if I were in a band, I said this on my on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, it's either Kurt. If I were to choose as a band who should do my recording, it would either be Kurt or it would be Joe Haley. I think both of those. I think those two guys are like elite level. They're like the Scott Burns of 2022. Yeah. But you guys weren't in the studio with Kurt. You just sent him files, and the he kind of came back to you with the mixes.
Yeah. So Dan Presley, our drummer, he has a studio, Prosciutto Studios. So we just recorded at his studio, and we just sort of, it was straight after New Year's, and also we all had COVID, all four of us. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, the whole that's what we were laughing. We're like, we probably should ring like the Guinness Book of Records and see if we were the first band to record a whole album with COVID, because it was Yeah.
So you had COVID while you were recording the record?
Yeah, I was pretty. Oh, I wasn't too bad. I was just my nasal, like everything was. So yeah, it was pretty bad, but I punched through it. Same
I was
with.
about to say, bro, when I had it in September last year, and it was fucking rough. I mean, the
Yeah,
first couple of days, like if I didn't have if I didn't have multiple doses of painkillers throughout the day, like I could barely walk around.
yeah.
It was. I mean, I know even if you have it mildly, I can imagine doing the starter vocals you do. That must have been pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, like I wasn't sure whether I was just, I don't know, because we'd sort of caught up because this is straight after New Year's, so
Yeah.
we had a bit of a party like for New Year's, and then we were coming into starting to record, and I was like, I don't know whether I just feel a bit shit from the party or whether it was just I was coming down with something. But then a few other of the boys got tested, and they're like, oh, we've got COVID, and I'm like, well, I'll check too. And then it turns out I had it. But I don't know. I was more. I don't know. Like my nasal cavity was all blocked and my throat was a bit swollen, but that was about it. I didn't really feel that sick. My girlfriend, she was real bad. She had like a fever and she was in bed for a couple of days. But I didn't seem to get it as bad. That was that second COVID. What was it? The
Omicron.
Yeah. When that come through, that's the one that we all got.
I was about to say though, that party, was this a illegal party? Because I know in Victoria the lockdowns were fierce, mate.
Oh,
and
yeah.
If memory serves me correctly, they were still in place.
We won't go into that.
You mean you guys met up on Zoom and we just had a few drinks,
a little cup of tea over the Zoom meeting.
Well, I will say, because I don't think any of the government look at this, I didn't really stick to anything to do with the lockdown, even when we had it here, because my best mate lived up the road. And so I just made sure there were no cops. Took a quick shot up to his house. Yeah. So we ended up hanging out together quite a lot during lockdown. I didn't really go, I didn't go elsewhere because everything was shut. But at the same time, it was like, he and I are both adults. We're both healthy. We don't live far from each other. So I'm not going to fucking sit in my house all day.
Yeah. Well, I'm sort of like an hour out of the city. So, and the way that they sort of gauged it was that if you lived in the metropolitan area of Melbourne, they called it the Ring of Steel. So I don't know whether you heard about this, but it was like on every major highway, they had a police checkpoint with, on some they had like the military there and the Navy, and they were checking. They've got these police cars with a laser scanner, and they scan your plates. And if you weren't, if you were from like a regional area, they'd let you through. But if you weren't, if you're from the city, you get pulled over straight away, and you get a huge fine. And I don't know, but a lot of the public transport was still running as well, so people could just jump on a train or a bus or whatever, and nothing was sort of checked on them. So I don't know. And after a while, people were just getting a bit crazy, like, because I was out of that zone, so I was still free to move around and do what I wanted. But I had some friends that lived right in the city, and they had the curfews as well. I can't remember what time everyone had to be inside, but they, if you were out even riding your bike or walking your dog at a certain time, there was just police everywhere, just patrolling the streets, and pretty hectic. So,
well, I know as far as like how I think how frustrated people got with it. There was that protest in Melbourne around January, if I'm not mistaken, and it was about 180,000 people that went.
Yeah, there was a couple. There was one. Yeah, there was a massive one. And then they had one. I think it kicked off because they shut down all the trade, all the construction, and that one kicked off real bad, because that was they marched all the way to the top of. We've got the Westgate Bridge, which is like a massive bridge that connects the western suburbs of Melbourne, and they walked to the top of that bridge and just like completely shut the bridge down. And Yeah, some of those marches, and you'd watch the news here, and they wouldn't really talk about it. So no one really knew what was going on unless you were following a independent sort of journalist on Facebook or something like that who was there filming everything, and you could watch it. You really had no idea the scale of it. So they tried to talk it down a bit, but yeah, it was pretty hectic.
It's very interesting how under wraps they've kept a lot of the narrative. Over the last kind of 2-3 years, I think it's become more brazenly obvious than perhaps it's been previously. Post COVID. But I mean, just recently, there was an incident where somebody from Pfizer was speaking in front of the EU Parliament, and she admitted that Pfizer had no data to prove that the vaccination would stop transmission of the virus. None. And no one's talking about it.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where if you were to bring that up in conversation with the average person who's not paying attention to these things, then, you'd immediately be labeled a conspiracy theorist. And, everyone nowadays is now, they're called ultra MAGA no matter where you live.
Yeah,
and then, but at the same time, it's like all these things are pretty patently obvious now. There's no conspiracy theory here. This was on, Europe's version of C-SPAN. You just needed to actually watch it and pay attention.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah. There was a thing because we've got floods at the moment. It's actually just kicked off here. You see a dog pacing around the back of me.
I saw, yeah.
There's a lightning storm that just started like 2 minutes before I jumped on with you, and it's pretty bad. So she's not a fan. So she's under the table cowering. But it's all good. But yeah, they've had a few towns in Victoria here in this state. They're all underwater, and a couple of people have gone missing, and they send these like emergency crews to go and help. And then the premier during the week said that anyone who's volunteering and they're not vaccinated, they're not allowed to help. So that was a big thing. A lot of people were upset about that because whether you're vaccinated or not, if you want to help, you should help, So yeah, that's been pretty big.
Well, I was about to say, especially now that we see that the vaccination isn't actually doing what it was advertised as doing. I'm double vaccinated, but I've said I will never get another jab again. Never.
Yeah, that's same as me. Like with work, pretty well got. That was another thing that pissed me off, like more with the vaccine, was just how they were pretty forceful. If you don't get it, you can't work, you can't go out to restaurants, you can't. Like, it was the wrong angle. That's what I thought. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to get it because I'm double jabbed as well. But for work, I had to have it. So yeah, but that's sort of angle that they took. A lot of people, were like, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to get it because I don't trust you. I don't trust the way this is going. And that's the way it sort of played out with.
Well, I said it reminds me of the firebrand Christianity that I grew up with, where it's like God loves you and he wants you to go to heaven, but by the way, if you don't listen, you're going straight to hell.
Yeah,
it's like I always, that was something I could never wrap my head around when it came to religion, and I certainly couldn't wrap my head around it when it came to this, because it's the exact same principle. It's like, it's great for you, you have to have it, but by the way, if you don't, we're going to ruin your life.
Yeah, that's like, exactly
how is this a free choice then?
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I was at school. I was like, went to like a Catholic school growing up, and there was, when we do our like religious stuff, I'd ask questions. I'm like, that was a fair question. I'm like, well, if you got Adam and Eve, and then if apparently like we all come from Adam and Eve, then how they had kids, then like, how is it possible if they were brother and sister or whatever it was, and then the teachers just didn't like it. And that's when I was like, hang on a minute, this doesn't seem right. So, and there were plenty of other questions that I had at the time, but I can't really remember now, but that sort of set me off on another direction. I'm like, yeah, I don't really sort of think this is all, what it's supposed to be or what it is. So I guess some people like that, some people aren't. They're just going to do what they're told, and they're not going to dig any deeper.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
but
I think what I've, because again, because and you'll be able to relate to this, because I grew up in a very religious household. I grew up in a very religious school, and I also grew up in a very religious community, right? And it's very much a blind obedience to whatever is in the good book.
yeah,
And they and anything that you kind of raise to them as a question, or something that just logically doesn't make sense to you, it's like they're the greatest salespeople in the world. They've got an objection handling sheet ready, to answer anything, and invariably it comes down to yours is not the place to question God. It's kind of
yeah,
the same with the vaccines. Yours is not the place to question the scientists or the government, no matter how little sense some of these things make.
yeah,
And so, like, I look at modern society very often, and I think to myself, I see the exact same mind virus infecting people when it comes to things like the vaccine, or various other, components of crazy woke thinking, that I saw in religion. It's just, to me, like, as religion's place in society has become minimized,
yeah,
these people have just latched onto something else. It's like there are, and I'm not surprised by this, but it's like people, just generally speaking, need some sort of crutch or something in their life that gives their life meaning, because they themselves can't find it otherwise.
yeah.
But without a shadow of a doubt, it's the exact same thinking. I mean, it's basically, we're dealing with the same, with people who have the same kind of religious zealotry. They've just replaced Jesus with Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, yeah, but it's true, and I think even like the TV starting to have a less of effect on people, like sitting there and watching news programs, and the fear and all that sort of stuff. Like the generations that are coming up now, they're more internet based, where they're free to pick and choose what they want to watch and what they want to read, and so I think the grip slowly coming off. Like. So they're probably always trying to find a new way to sort of hold everyone back, or keep them sort of doing what they want, I guess.
And they hate that, by the way. They hate that the grip is coming away, because that's why they constantly sob and cry about misinformation, and they openly lament the fact that that we don't have as much trust in the media anymore, and it's so sad. It's like, but why would we trust people who continually get caught out lying to us? If you had a mate and your mate kept on saying to you, the sky is purple, and you said, no, the sky is blue. No, it's purple, and you're actually a lunatic to think otherwise, blah, blah, blah. Eventually you're going to go, listen, I'm not going to believe a fucking word that comes out of your mouth anymore.
Exactly.
And if he sits in a corner sulking about it, he just looks like a bigot idiot. And again, it's exactly the same with the mainstream media.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty bad. I can't watch it anymore. Like, but yeah, having that, and also traveling too. You see how people are when you travel. Like, I remember the first time, when I was younger, I backpacked around Europe, and I went to Italy, and I'd never seen, because I don't like, people are religious, but not as crazy as I think Australia, like, people aren't like that. There are like religious groups, but I don't think it's not as pushed on you as some other countries. But yeah, when I went to Italy the first time, and seeing how these little villages and all these places, and everyone was like right into it, and I was like, yeah, you sort of just see a different perspective on how people sort of treat it, and how serious they are about it. Where I don't really some people aren't. They might be religious, but they don't force it down someone's throat, like what they did back in the day. But
dude, when I was growing up, it was fire and brimstone shit. We would have it. We had it frequently at school. Like, I mean, not frequently. It was like always. We'd have assembly every single morning, and at assembly, they read from the Bible and they pray, and you would have teachers like openly say, pretty crazy stuff, like things that nowadays would get, land them in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I was in a school of 980 pupils. I was often singled out, like quite openly, for certain things. Like there was a teacher once, in his opening Bible reading and prayer. We did it out because it was summertime. We did it outside in the square. From the square, you could kind of see some of the classrooms, and you could see people's suitcases and stuff stacked there. So anyway, he does his opening Bible reading, and he looks up and he says to the kids, you often hear it said Fred or Peter isn't such a bad guy. Yes, he listens to Slayer and he goes to, rock clubs over the weekend, but he's not going to hell. I'm telling you, that's not true. Then he says, now, again, everybody knows exactly who he's talking about because there weren't a lot of kids listening to metal in my school.
Yeah.
Then, as he's about to go into prayer, he says, you need to ask yourself a question. Is it right to sit on your bed at night listening to Metallica? Is it right to draw Venom on your suitcase? And on my suitcase, massive, the Venom logo across the back. But I mean, that was a fucking almost monthly occurrence. Some whack shit, some guy would turn up at school and then he goes, after this, and I'm doing my best idiot South African accent here. After this lesson, I want you all to be listening to God and Moses, not Guns and Roses. The kids are fucking, getting all emotional and hopped up. And at the end, he does, they used to do these things that, I'm sure you've seen this, an altar call, which is, if you want to give your life to Jesus, put your hand up or fucking come to the front.
Yeah.
Again, the entire school would stand up, even though, just an hour previously, they've been saying how much they love Jesus, right? Time to change my life. They stand up. Then I'm one of the only people sitting down. Then a teacher would stop a class, like a double period class, and shout and yell at me for the entire hour. How dare I not stand up? Who do I think I am? It's like, because I don't want to stand up. That's why.
Yeah. That was. Yeah. Sorry.
No. You were going to say?
Oh, you just reminded me of something when I was at school. There was one of my mates, because I had a friend who was like an altar boy, and he got, his mum was very religious, so she pushed him into doing it. So at least once a week we had to go to church. And then I remember there was one day I had to go to the office and see one of the teachers, and he got caught with the tape, and it had like 2 Live Crew and NWA like back in front. And when I walked in, the principal was playing 2 Live Crew in the office.
Oh, dude, that's rough.
Fucking chicks and pussies and all this shit. And
yeah.
She just sat there and was listening to all, and he was probably only 10, 11, 12, something like that. But we were pretty young. But he had this tape. Oh man, he got his ass kicked real bad. I remember that. It was pretty funny.
Well, I think the story around 2 Live Crew actually is that they all met each other in Catholic school. They were like in a, like all of the guys in 2 Live Crew were originally in a Catholic school, and I might be talking total shit here, but this is what I'd heard.
Yeah.
Met each other in Catholic school. They got together and started the band. When they recorded Nasty As They Wanna Be, they sent cassettes as gifts to every single child in the school that they had come from.
Oh, really?
And obviously, if you've heard Nasty As They Wanna Be, like you would never in a million years would a band be able to release anything like that now. I mean, they were like anyone who knows Andrew Dice Clay, they were like the Andrew Dice Clay of hip hop, which is just the worst, most offensive stuff you can possibly imagine. I mean, I'll admit, actually, from time to time, I'll still put on 2 Live Crew. I just want to just a song just to start laughing, because they were actually really good rappers, but I mean it's just fucking obscene, the stuff that they come up with.
What do they call it? Miami bass? Is that they come up with their own style?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Big bass.
But I mean, just the fact that they would like call each other out when it's somebody's turn to do a verse, they would do like the chorus or whatever, and then they would like call out the dude's name who's about to do the next verse, Kid Money or whatever. It's dude, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, how did you end up in Catholic school? Were your parents of the faith?
No, well, it was strange. Like, I was going to like just a normal state school, and then my mum had a bit of a run-in with one of the teachers, and she didn't like her, and then she's like, I'm going to pull you out of this school. So where we lived, there was a Catholic school like straight across the street, and she's like, I'm just going to enroll you here. So it's just going to be easy for me and work and everything else. So I was like, oh, okay, then I could just walk across the street and go to school. So that's how it started. But then sort of like my old man, his side of the family was very like, not very religious, but they were caught up, they all went to Catholic schools and all this sort of stuff. And So yeah, I just got thrown into it.
Mm.
So that was when I was pretty young. But yeah, I don't know. I was just like, as you sitting there and listening to it, and being not forced to read the Bible, but having stories told from the Bible and stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't really buy this. From a young age, I was like that, and it's probably why I listen to metal, I guess, because they're always making fun of it. So yeah.
Yeah. I've often pondered why I've always been attracted to darker sounding music, because it's because I grew up in that environment. For me, there was a long period of my life where I didn't question it whatsoever. Everything that was in the Bible was true, and that was just all there was to it. But the big kind of emotional or mental wrestle for me was always like, why do I keep wanting to listen to music that by their logic or by their standards is considered evil? I started with, when I was about 5 years old, I discovered Depeche Mode. Then from Depeche Mode, you move on to the next big thing for me was AC/DC. And then AC/DC, obviously that's like after Christ, devil comes. So you're already in like your mind, there's all these books warning you against bad music, and obviously front cover of most of those books is the cover to Highway to Hell. That, like, Bon Scott is just the most terrible man on the face of the earth, and Angus is like the right hand of Lucifer. And then and then it was Metallica, and then I remember hearing Painkiller by Judas Priest, and I mean that was like such an evil sounding song. I was terrified that demons would be swarming my room. And then you do get to a point where you've now crossed the line where even in your own mind, no form of logical gymnastics can get around it anymore. You're now listening to Slayer, and then you're listening to Deicide and shit like that, and it's like, no, I may as well just give up the idea that these bands aren't evil. There's no point trying to defend them.
Well, I think
now and you just embrace the idea that, hey, actually part of why I like it is because it's fucking evil. That's why.
And I think you get to the point where listening to metal all the time, it just seems like that's the normal music, and if you hear one pop song on the radio, you're just like what is this shit? Like, that's probably what they're like, when they hear one of our songs. So
well, that's the thing. Like I so many times now when I talk to people about the music I listen to, and I'm 42 years old, so and I work in a very corporate job. So when people talk about music and stuff like that, I just openly say to them, look, a lot of what I like now, when I heard it when I was into Metallica and bands like that, which I still like, but when I was just getting into this music, I would hear bands like Obituary and bands like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide, and I would think it's a load of shit. I think it's a complete bunch of noise. It took a while for my brain to kind of decipher what was going on musically, for it to make sense in my mind, and for me to actually start to enjoy it. I said, but it's not for everybody. No, absolutely not. Even when I was into the death metal stuff, black metal was like that was another further step. I remember hearing Blaze in the Northern Sky for the first time, and I was like, this is the biggest load of fucking nonsense I've ever heard. Now it's like one of the best records ever.
That's it. I'm exactly the same. Like, starting out, because where we are down here, it's like the South Coast. So growing up, there was a lot of everyone's into surfing and skateboarding and stuff like that. So it was a lot of punk rock and, hardcore and shit like that. So that's the majority of what the kids were listening to at school. But yeah, from there, sort of went from, you just get heavier. I've pretty well, since I've, been a teenager till now, like I'm 41, so I'm pretty well the same age as you. I've just got heavier and heavier. So now it's just pure death metal and black metal for me. But I don't know if it's the camera, but you look like a bit of a young blood. I was sitting here feeling like a fucking old man talking to you, and then what's name? I thought you were in like your late 20s, mate. No, I'm 40, mate. So yeah, I don't know.
But so you mentioned you live out in like do you live out in the countryside, or is it like?
I live in, it's a city, Geelong. It's so where we've got Melbourne. It sits on a bay, like Port Phillip Bay. So it's the southern coast. We've got a bay, and then to the west, like the southern end of the bay, there's another city, and that's us. So Geelong's like the gateway to the surf coast. So we've got like Torquay and Bells Beach and all the surf beaches, the Great Ocean Road, if you've heard of that. It's the southern coast. It's pretty epic. It's pretty nasty. There's lots of shipwrecks and it's pretty wild. So, but it's only an hour from the city. It's not that far, but they're slowly building out. There's give it another 20 years, it's probably going to be all connected. So, it's a nice place. It's pretty chill. So,
yeah. And you've been living there your whole life?
Yeah, I've lived here my whole life. I've been to Melbourne and back. I've worked in Melbourne, had odd jobs. I've lived overseas for a bit. I lived in the UK for 2 years, did the work visa, part of the Commonwealth. So we get to enjoy the comforts of being in the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
So lived in London for a bit, moved to Leeds, lived there for about 6 months. That was pretty fucking hectic.
How come?
Well, I had a friend that was working up there and in a bar, and he's like, "Oh, we need a guy to come up," because I was working like construction jobs in like West London and South London and stuff, and I was just getting over it, all the travel and everything else. And then he's like, "Come up, it's cool. It's it's the north of England, like it's totally different to London, and the people are fucking nicer and it's the true England." And I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll come up and I'll come for the weekend and just hang out and see what it's like." And then, pretty well, I didn't leave. I went up there, and then his boss was like, "Oh, you're starting tomorrow. I need you." I'm like, "Okay." So, but I didn't realize there's like 11 unis or something in Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been to Leeds once or twice, but every time I've been there, it's always been very pleasant.
Yeah, massive uni city, like heaps of young people.
Yeah, yeah. The UK, I think it's like how old were you when you were here?
Oh, I was like 23.
Yeah, so we were here around about the same time, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still here, but I landed here in 2002, February 2nd, 2002.
Yeah, right.
And I was on a working holiday visa, and then at the time I was with somebody who got a work permit, so I got an extension based on the fact that we were common law partners, and then through various means, I ended up staying until now, and will unfortunately stay forever. I mean, it'll be interesting to see your views if you come back here to come and play what the country is like now, because a lot of the great stuff about London from especially a live music perspective, it's all gone. The Astoria is broken down, the Mean Fiddler is broken down. Yeah. And I was about to say, I'm pretty sure you would have been I'd be stunned if you and I weren't in the same queue waiting to see the same bands at the Mean Fiddler, at the Astoria. Yeah. I mean, those were the fucking days. Like when I walk past there now, all they have there is just a massively built up train station or underground station. And it's just like, it's like the spirit of it is just gone. I remember how excited I used to be standing in that queue. You didn't give a shit that you were there for 3-4 hours. You just wanted to get as close to the front as you possibly could. Yeah. And then when they finally start letting you in, it's like, it's about to kick off. But yeah, those days are done, mate. Absolutely done.
That sucks. Yeah, I haven't been to. I went to Europe. I just got back. I went to Beyond the Gates. I went to Norway. Yeah, I was there for a couple of weeks. It was sick. I had a fucking awesome time. But I didn't go to the UK. But so I haven't been there since 2006. So I'm tipping it's probably changed a lot since I was there. That's nearly
the tipping point was probably after the recession. So I'd say when the financial crisis hit, that's when everything started sliding. The one thing that's better now, the food is infinitely better than it used to be. Like I remember first arriving here and all the food was fucking awful. It was inedible crap. Now London has a really exciting food scene, like really cool, like street food, and depending on what kind of stuff you're into, obviously. But I don't like fancy food, so it's the food that you can get here now is brilliant.
Yeah, right.
But a lot about it has changed, and I'd say London's culture has become really anodyne, but at the same time, the way that the policing, for example, is a complete clusterfuck. They've admitted now they no longer bother following up on burglaries because they say the police are too overstretched. But then you see these videos of a guy calling a police officer a dickhead, and all of a sudden there's fucking 7 cops swarming his house. So it's little things like that. I sometimes feel not to go down a rabbit hole, but I sometimes feel like the UK as a society, and there's awesome people that live here still, and people very good friends of mine, but as a society in general, it kind of feels like it's a society that stopped taking itself seriously, which is why we've had, just had another turnover of prime ministers in 3-4 days.
So who's prime minister now? Have you got one, or it's
no, not yet? I was gonna put in for the job myself, but unfortunately, because I'm from South Africa, they would say no. And I think my views on how to get the country in ship shape probably align quite closely to the movie Dredd, or to Judge Dredd. So
just be a bit more strict.
Probably not ready for that level of discipline.
Yeah, right. My girlfriend's from Durban in South Africa. So yeah, she's one of your natives. Yeah, but she lived in London for a fair while, so she's got an English accent. She has lost a lot of her South African twang, but yeah, when she catches up,
I would hope I never had a South African twang. But I'll tell you what's weird. I'll go back and watch older episodes of Into the Necrosphere, and I'll even hear differences in my accent from when I started the podcast to now.
Really?
And it's like, fucking hell, like I wouldn't have thought that. Like because I was going back, I was listening to I was looking for a little clip that I wanted to reference on the news section that I do. And I was listening to something off episode 31, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I sound so much different. What's going on?
Maybe just a lot. Yeah. Like, have you been home at all? So whereabouts?
Yeah. Well, I try and go home once a year. Obviously, COVID threw that into disarray. But there are a lot of things about South Africa that I don't like either. But there's a lot of stuff I genuinely love, and I will say, very openly, I'm never as happy as a human being as I am when the happiest that you'll ever find me is the second I get off the plane in Cape Town. Is like, and you kind of get that first, lung full of sea air. That's when I feel truly at my happiest.
Yeah, I've never been there. I really want to get the landscape. Just looks fucking epic. Like, it looks amazing.
Oh, dude, it's incredible. If you like, if you like wine and you like steak and you like the outdoors, I challenge anybody to find a place that's better. I'd say there's probably a couple of spots in America that'll come close, but in terms of value for money, in terms of just how cool people are, and the natural beauty of the place, and just the quality of everything that you get is fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So now, if you want to go and discover your girlfriend's roots, it's probably a good thing to do. Durban, I must confess, I'm not as big of a fan of. There's some very cool things to do in Durban and some nice places, but I would always suggest, if you go to South Africa, go to Cape Town and start from Cape Town, work your way through to Knysna, the Eastern Cape.
Yeah, we have spoke about it. Yeah, I think she's in the same boat. I think Durban's not really on the list anymore. It's completely different, she said, from when she grew up. Like, it's gone downhill pretty bad, crimes through the roof, and it's not a nice place from what she said. But I guess there's going to be pockets of places, that can have their good and the bad, I guess. But
the crime is pretty severe. Like in central Durban, especially, it's really rough.
Yeah.
But there's if you ever go to Durban, there's a stunning hotel there called the Oyster Box, which I think when I went, which was like 2012, I stayed there for 4 nights, and it was like rated one of the world's best hotels. It's unfucking believable. Food's incredible. Everything about it's incredible. Like on the ocean and stuff. That's very nice. But now, I grew up in a dump called Bloemfontein. I never go there, and I never will go back there ever again. But it's the spot where I go to now is I just fly straight into Cape Town, and about an hour and a half away, there's a town called Hermanus, which is very famous for whale watching and things like that. I just go there. But I took a gander at your social media before we did this, just to kind of, make sure that you aren't affiliated with the Ultra Maga lot. No, I'm fucking around, of course. But I noticed you strike me as a bit of an outdoorsman yourself, mate.
Yeah. Well, I would sort of, I don't know. I love the outdoors. Yeah, a lot of fishing and up in the bush, and lots of stuff. got the dirt bikes and the fishing rods, and yeah, we get away as much as we can. So yeah, it's a big, like, guys that I grew up with in town here, like, or non-metal mates, like what everyone does is they've all got boats, so there's a lot of fishing that goes on, and a lot of beer. So yeah, if I'm not sort of doing stuff with the band, I'm getting coaxed into going fishing and stuff like that. So which is good. I love getting out in the outdoors. It's good.
Yeah.
Good.
And I saw a photo of you on a horse as well. Are you do you ride? Was that a one-off?
No, that's pretty funny. That's me and my girlfriend went to Phuket at the start of the year. We got some like real cheap tickets. It was like $150 each way or something like that. And she's crazy about horses. So I've ridden in the past, not a lot, but I've done a couple of like 2-3 day like trail rides and stuff where we camp, and then we pack up and we ride and go through rivers and all that sort of shit. It's pretty cool. So I can ride, but I'm not an expert. But yeah, she was like, I really want to go. We saw a flyer or somewhere, a picture on the wall of these people riding horses on the beach, and she's like, I really want to go ride the horses. And I'm like, okay, we'll go ride. So we went. It took about 2 days because I'm about 110 kilos. So I've got like native ponies in Thailand. I didn't even know, but or Southeast Asia. So these things are pretty small. So they found me a horse, and I'm 6'4" as well. So I got up and went for a nice gallop on the beach. So it was good. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
I did a trail ride the last time that I was in South Africa, which was really good. But yeah, they needed to get a horse to accommodate my stature as well. So I'm 6 foot and I'm 114 now. I was about 111, 112 then.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what they got, but in either way, he was fucking enormous. So it's like he needed to, he needed to know his shit to be able to carry me. We have 5 horses, but we don't ride them. My girlfriend broke her back falling off a horse many years ago, actually. So and ever since then, she's not really been back on, except when it's with me doing like a trail ride or whatever. We also have 2 Appaloosas, so you can't really ride them because they're too temperamental. And the other 2, they're probably just a bit too fat to ride at the moment. So I don't think the saddles that we have for them will fit them.
That's like if I ever owned a horse, I'd probably have one of them. Like, sort of, they're a cool horse. I love you get the what do they call it? The leopard spots or whatever it is. They're cheeky as fuck, mate. That's the problem. I can show you what they look like actually, but they're they're awesome, but they're very cheeky. Like you constantly have to beware of them trying to bite you, and if we move them from one patch of the property to another, like we live on a horse ranch, but if we were to move them from one spot to another spot, one of them in particular, will constantly try and fucking bite your hand, or he'll try and he'll try to like nip at your arm or something. It's almost just like he's testing you just to see if I fuck around with him a little bit, what's he going to do? Yeah.
And actually this one's older brother, which we also have, before he was cut, he was a nightmare, because if he sensed a slight bit of weakness, he would try it on and try and lean into you and try and push you up against the wall. And, you kind of had to be a bit rough with him and sort of, when he leans into you, you have to give him the shoulder straight back. Yeah. But hold on, let me share my screen. I'll show you this quickly. I can't find an actual full on one now, but there you can see one of them there. So there he is, Dream. The other one there, Leo, is that's one of the other horses that we have.
Yeah, they're sick horses.
But very, very, very cool. But 110 and 6'4", mate, is you're a big boy. Do you do do you lift weights? Do you train or anything like that?
I've just gotten back into it. I actually had a real, I don't know. During COVID, I thought it's the time, get back into training and stuff, and then I don't know, I just sort of stopped. I used to do like Muay Thai and box a bit. I used to love sort of the more physical sort of stuff. And then I've just started doing like this circuit training with my girlfriend. She's right into it. So it's sort of like a mixture of, I don't know, CrossFit and boxing sort of shit, I guess. But it's something different. I've been enjoying it. It's pretty cool. I don't like, they do this one thing, deadlift burpee. So you like do a deadlift and then you drop down and do a push up on the bar and come back. That sucks. But yeah, I've just started getting back into it. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's good. So yeah, I haven't really done a lot of weight training though, like but yeah, more of sort of just sort of keeping fit, cardio sort of shit. Like yeah, I've boxed a little bit when I was younger. Not like I sparred a little bit, but I got I had an accident when I was younger. I lost hearing in my right ear. And
oh really?
Yeah, I've got an ear infection, and then I don't know what happened after that. It just, yeah, I can't really explain it. The doctors and everyone, they looked at it and it was a weird thing. But after that, I lost my balance a bit. So everything just went out the window. Any sort of physical sort of work or training in that way where it was jumping around a lot, I just sort of stopped doing it. So yeah, but now it's all sort of settled in now, so everything's fine. But yeah, it was just something that I've grown up with, which is a pain in the ass, but yeah, it's fine. I can deal with it.
What was the accident? What happened?
So we went up. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently, like, because I'm from Victoria, you're going up into the warmer states like Queensland, and that I was swimming in a swimming pool, and the water was dirty. This is when I was, I can't remember how old I was, probably like early 20s. And yeah, and then there was some bug that I got, and it actually ate a hole in my eardrum, and I got back.
My God.
Yeah, and then I had to go to the doctor when I got back because it just felt like my ear was full of water and I just couldn't shake it. And then the cabin pressure on the flight home, it just made it worse, and so it was just aching real bad. And yeah, they gave me some like antibiotics and stuff like that to take, and that healed it. But then after a couple of weeks, I just lost hearing. It slowly went over a day, and then I got really fucking dizzy for like 3 days. I just couldn't move. I was paralyzed in bed, throwing up all over myself, and then got rushed to the hospital. And yeah, after a few days, it just sort of balanced itself out. I think it was like my middle ear adjusting, not having, because your ears keep you balanced. Like
yeah. I was about to say your equilibrium would have been completely thrown off.
Yeah, so it was fucked. Like I had no balance for a few days, and it was the worst feeling ever. But yeah, I come home, and I was off work for about 8 weeks, and then after that I was fine. But I didn't drink because as soon as I'd have a beer or anything, just that you get a bit tipsy or lightheaded. I felt like that feeling was coming back, so I was like, yeah, I just stayed away from it for a fair while. But yeah, that was a while ago. But yeah, it's fine now. Everything's sort of back to normal, balance wise.
I was about to say, did you do Thai boxing or did you do the Muay Thai after this happened, or was that
no, that was
prior to?
That was only probably, I got into that a few years ago just to sort of keep fit, because I found. Yeah, there was a gym just around the corner from my place. I went in there, and all these guys are just fucking ripped. They were just, 6 foot tall, lean as like 6 packs, and just totally shredded. And I was like, fuck, these guys look amazing. And so I sort of went in there and signed up with them and just started learning how it all worked, and started training with them. And yeah, I lost a ton of weight. It was good, and learned a bit. But yeah, wasn't interested really in sparring or anything like that. Like they're fucking dropping elbows on each other and kneeing each other in the chin, like flying knees and shit. I was like, no, I'm not up for that. So I was just happy to go and hang out and train and, just be part of it. It's cool. Yeah.
It's so I did Muay Thai for about 7 years, and I loved every fucking second of it. I sparred. I did some competing as well. I think our group was pretty sensible when it came to sparring. No one was doing flying knees and fucking dropping elbows and stuff. But you'd spar as hard as your opponent is going to allow you to. Before it starts getting silly. But I'm actually a big believer in when it comes to sparring. I think slower, more deliberate sparring is better, because it helps you get the confidence to actually land a strike. Like I can often tell when I go to like an amateur competition or something like that, or at least when I used to compete, I could tell who does hard sparring who does only hard sparring at their gym versus who kind of has a balance, where sometimes they'll go hard, sometimes it'll be technique sparring. The guys that do hard sparring are the ones that start flailing their arms around, and it's almost like they're desperate to just make some sort of contact. Whereas the guys that do technique sparring, there's more precision in what they're doing. They're more deliberate in, okay, I'm going to land this in such a way. But I think even if you take the sparring out of it, the camaraderie of being with with the folks doing that, the men and the women doing it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Not like anything you can describe to somebody, especially when you've got a good group of people and they, you kind of get on well. But when you work hard like that, you sweat together, and sometimes you fuck each other up a little bit. It's an amazing thing. I would highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't done it. But I would certainly say anybody who has kids, especially if you have a boy and the boy is a little rambunctious, he needs to go to Muay Thai as fucking quickly as possible.
Yeah. There's tons of kids in there. They had like a good young kid program. There was anywhere from 5 to 10 or 11. They had them in there training. So which is great. Yeah, I don't have kids, but I'd definitely be on. I agree with that for sure. Like getting training young. I wish I had done it from a young age.
Same, yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't really was more interested in riding my BMX bike around and listening to tunes, I guess. I don't know, but
no, for me it was like I did judo when I was young, and then I quit because skateboarding was everything for me, even though I was the worst fucking skater on the face of the earth. So it was like, everybody, it was like the lifestyle, it was like skating and music. Everything else was nonsense. Now I think when I look back on it, I'm very sorry I never played rugby. I'm very sorry I never started with Thai boxing much sooner in my life. But it's life. But I would definitely say, like, again, as I said, anybody who has kids, boy or girl, but especially boys, get them doing shit like that. Keep them away from whatever is driving the 60% decrease in testosterone in modern men, and get them doing manly shit.
Oh fuck yeah! Totally agree with that.
So Soul Furnace drops on the 25th of November.
25th, yeah.
And then what's the immediate plans thereafter? I would assume World Tour, complete domination, taking Metallica out as your support. That's
I don't know about that. Well, we just got to see how it goes, I guess. Like, it's all happened so quick. We've had a pretty good response so far, like especially with the film clips. But I just want everyone to hear the album. That's because there's a lot of other. It was hard to try and pick which songs to do the clips for, because we like all the songs. So we weren't sure what to do, but we just sort of picked. We picked 2, and then Season of Mist. They were a big fan of Northern Dawn. They were pretty keen for us to do something with that, or put it as a single. So because we were just going to do 2 clips, but then we really wanted to do the Eye of the Moon one with the snow. Because we had that idea, and then like the first one, Soul Furnace, that was like always going to happen, but the second one was going to be a toss-up, but we just thought, we'll just do 3. But we've got our album launch. It's because it's sort of hard, because we've been like, for months we've been trying to book a venue to do the album launch, but everywhere, because gigs are kicking off like big time here. Like there's pretty well a gig on every weekend from now till Christmas, like, in Melbourne. So a lot of the venues have been booked out. So we're playing on the 17th of December with Earthrot, Writhing. I can't remember the fucking name. Deniloquit. I can't remember. But anyway,
Earthrot is sufficient, which is another fucking great band. I think that was my first ever season of missed artists that I had on here was Jared.
Jared's a legend. Yeah, we sort of catch up every now and then, like at gigs and stuff.
Top notch dude.
Yeah, the whole band and like have you seen them live before? Have you seen them?
No.
They just the sound they've got. Tom and Colin, they've just dialed in this fucking tone. It's massive. Like, yeah, they just they really nailed it. It just sounds huge. So I'm really looking forward to playing with them because I fucking love that band.
Well, what I liked about the stuff that you guys have put out so far is there's a lot of variety in what you've done. Like each of those 3 songs sound very distinct from each other. The one I like most is "Eye of the Moon" for sure.
Yeah.
But like I love the fact I think when I did the react for "Eye of the Moon" on my news segment, I described it as it sounds like clandestine if you did it as if a black metal band remade it, like in the best possible way. But it's yeah, like I said, there's a lot of variety. It's very, it's very different. There's a lot of interesting things going on, in the music. So I'm also massively looking forward to hearing the whole thing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, someone said the other day, or they messaged Ben and they said you sound like black metal Mastodon, something like that. We thought that was pretty funny, but yeah, it does have that sort of vibe to it. Yeah, it's good. It's just been great because like I've never been in a band with Ben before. Like we toured, we've played gigs, we've done a lot of stuff with his other bands and my other band, but we've never actually wrote music together. So this is the first, and it's just the 4 of us together. It's just clicked. Like everyone just works really well together, really efficient, and everyone's sort of equally taking the share of things. Like, so things are just happening really quick because we're all onto it, so it's been great. It's sort of like a breath of fresh air, like having this new band, new people, new sound, and yeah, it's going to be good. So I just hope people enjoy it, and we'll see what the rest of the world thinks, I guess.
Well, I've no doubt people are going to respond to it really well. And I mean, I again, with the observation I had when I looked at those videos was it's clear that Season of Mist has a lot of confidence in you guys too, because the videos don't look cheap. Like without getting you to open the books, there's definitely it smacks of reasonable production values. All 3 of those clips you guys have put out so far.
Yeah, we've well, that's sort of one of the things when we sat down. We're just like, righto. We sort of come up with a plan, and we're like, if we're going to do it, we're just going to have to go and just release something that's, not done by a friend of a friend at art school or something like that. We're like, we want to try and get the best guys. We're all just going to have to try and put our money together and sort it out. And that's what we did, really. We've just sort of, we've had Colin Jeffs. He's been amazing. From 10 of Swords Media, we sort of got onto him, and he was like very responsive with us straight away. So it was good because we were like back and forth chatting. We're like, well, we've got these ideas and this is what we want to do. And he just loves it. Like he feeds off it. So that's been a big thing as well. Like we've worked in tight with him, and he's just sort of brought it all to life. And I was just so worried, like, because yeah, it could easily just look really fucking cheesy and shit. But
yeah.
So a lot of the stuff, like having fucking wizards and like having this sort of medieval, like dark sort of occult theme to it, it could quite easily just turn into something. There's probably people that do think it's cheesy, but yeah, I'm quite happy with the finish on it. Like everyone's pretty happy with it. So yeah, we've been lucky, and I just think we've been really, really organized. I think that's when it's come down to, like, everything has been thought of, and we did, scouting missions for spots, and we'd spend days out walking around and taking photos and looking for spots to do the clips, and I think that's sort of paid off, having all that.
I was just about to say, I don't think it's luck has anything to do with it, mate. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of hard work and planning and preparation that's gone into doing it properly.
Yeah.
Luck is when you do none of those things and somehow shit comes off. But clearly, as I said, you guys put the effort in at the front end, and then obviously the product that's come out of the end is excellent.
No, it's been great. Well, maybe Eye the Moon, that was pretty touch and go, because it was like a blizzard for like 2 days. We had 3 days to shoot, and then the first day we got a scene in for like an hour, and then the next day, and then it just started raining and snow and everything, and then the next day we didn't do anything for about 6 hours. We sat in our cars and waited, and then we finally got this break in the afternoon, and we did about 5 or 6 hours shooting, and then we went back in the morning. We'd booked in, because everyone's busy with work and got other things on, so everyone had to take time off to do these clips, and so we did a back-to-back shoot with Northern Dawn and Eye of the Moon. So we had to get back to Melbourne to do the Northern Dawn clip, but we didn't get enough takes for the first clip, so we had to get up at 5 a.m. and drive back up the mountain, and pretty well shot half of the clip in about an hour and a half up there, and then just back in the car, legged it straight back to Melbourne, 5-hour drive, and straight into the next clip. So everyone was working really hard, and but it's paying off. Like, everything's turning out pretty well, and I'm stoked. It's good.
Cool. Right, brother, thank you so much for your time. Massively appreciated the chat, and as I said, looking forward to hearing the record. But I will also at some point in the next couple of years hopefully be coming out Australia way, and one of the things I for sure want to do, there's a couple of folks around Melbourne that I want to see, so I might be
I'll tell you,
if I'm around your neck of the woods, I'll let you know.
I'll tell you when you should come. We've got Mayhem. I've just got the ticket here.
Mayhem and Werewolves,
Ulcerate and Werewolves.
I know.
On the 21st,
insane, fucking insane show that.
I come here for that. Take get your New Year's and your Christmas and everyone sorted, and then jump on the plane, brother.
No, Matt told me about that. Like just before it was announced, he said you might want to change your travel plans. I mean, fucking hell, man! What a lineup. Yeah,
it's going to be epic. I'm looking forward to it. So it's going to be really good. I think this year all the international acts will be starting to slowly come back to Australia, which is going to be good. So everyone's looking forward to it.
Cool. All right, we'll do. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Jackie. Cheers, mate.
Speak soon. Bye-bye, brother. That was Eye of the Moon by Black Lava of the forthcoming record Soul Furnace. It drops, as I said at the start of the show, on the 25th of November, courtesy of Season of Mist Records. Pre-orders are available now, so if you head over to their Bandcamp, a link in the description to the podcast, and you pre-order yourself some music, then do let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere that sent you. But a big thanks and a shout out to Rob for coming on the podcast. What a great guy. And I really do think that this is a band we are going to hear a lot more from in the near future. I mean, for a band to be brand new and put together something that is as well realized and well fleshed out as a musical concept as Soul Furnace, and I have heard the whole record already quite a few times. I think it's a tremendous achievement, and I'm very, very excited to see what comes next for these guys. Speaking of bands that are new, one band that is definitely not new to the scene is Darkthrone. They have been around for as long as many people listening to this podcast has been alive. And there has been a fluctuation, one could say, in the quality of their music over the course of the last 10 years in particular. Of course, they are, it goes without saying, one of the most influential bands in black metal, if not the most influential band in black metal. I think if you want to liken them to a movie franchise, they're basically like, what Halloween is to horror movies, or the Halloween franchise, I should say, is to horror movies. I would say it's safe to say Darkthrone is that to black metal. Their new record, Astral Fortress, is out now on Peaceful Records. Last week, as I mentioned, I had spoken about the single on my news rant segment, and I did not enjoy it very much. And having gone back and listened to it multiple times now, I still don't like it very much. It's probably not a good thing, therefore, that the record actually kicks off with a song. And I think just to reiterate, for those that criminally don't listen to my news rant segment, the opening riff of the song shows a lot of promise, a hint that maybe we're about to hear a bona fide return to black metal for Darkthrone. But soon thereafter, the rest of the track, including when it speeds up about a third of the way in, is just a plodding and aimless, I wouldn't call it a mess, but it just doesn't really feel like it's ever going to go anywhere. When the song eventually kind of fades out unceremoniously at the end, it is almost quite fitting because of how remarkable much of it actually is. The track Impeccable Caverns of Satan is up next, and this unfortunately is another plodder, continuing musical themes that the band has explored on both Old Star and Eternal Hails. Both records I did not like, and I would say this one is similarly lacking in energy to the vast majority of the songs on those previous albums. Like the first track, it also abruptly just kind of fades out without really having delivered a single memorable note. And by this point, you're kind of thinking to yourself, the best days of Darkthrone are done, and I'm going to turn this nonsense off and I'm going to go listen to something else. But then track 3 kicks in, a song called Stalagmite Necklace, and it comes initially as somewhat of a relief because even though there's no change in actual pace, from the previous track, there are smatterings of keyboards thrown in, all across the length of this track, and it provides for probably the album's first truly interesting moment, and it also really kind of helps create a lot of atmosphere. Also, it suggests to me that if this musical direction is the road that Darkthrone are going to continue down on future releases, then perhaps they would be well served incorporating elements that, at least by their standards, would be seen as pretty experimental, like, really kind of lean into the keyboards, lean into the progressive stuff. And that point is actually further underlined by the next track, which, even though the title is a little on the hokey side, The Sea Beneath the Seas of the Sea, it's actually probably one of the best songs I've heard of Darkthrone, or on a Darkthrone record, over at least the last decade. It opens up with an intentionally proggy guitar intro, and had this been put out in 1992, you could almost certainly have expected a legion of pimply-faced teens in corpse paint turning up outside of Fenris's house with pitchforks and torches in their hands. But the song plays with poise, it plays with purpose. It's 10 minutes long, but it completely justifies that, especially straight after the fantastic atmospheric break that kind of kicks in around the 6-minute mark. Everything about the song works. The riffing is great. Fenris's drumming is on point. Even the production, which is, or I will say, a step up from Eternal Hails. Not quite where I would like it to be, but definitely a step up from Eternal Hails. But even the production actually on the record really suits the music on this particular song. And that includes, working along with Nocturno Culto's Tom G. Warrior vocal impersonation, which, he has been cultivating really for the last 2 records now. Again, great track. Sadly, the fist pumping that accompanies that song must once again be reined in on Kevorkian Times, a track which starts off strong, but never quite seems to retain its stride in quite the way that the previous 2 did after the very promising opening salvo. And then finally, after a short but a very effective instrumental break that reminds me a little bit of Tom York's Suspiria soundtrack, we have Eon 2, the title, of course, being a conscious throwback to the closing track on Darkthrone's debut record, Soulside Journey, and tying into this idea that they are mostly inspired by themselves, which is something I think Fenris has said. Eon 2 is not quite as enjoyable as its older namesake, but it's still very, very cool. And actually, I think it's a nice way to close out the record. It's also a fitting way, or a fitting tribute to the vintage metal that Darkthrone now use as their primary muse when they're writing music. So that leaves me to answer the question: where does the 20th Darkthrone album land with me? And I would say it's probably going to surprise quite a few of you, especially those of you that have been following the podcast diligently for the last several episodes, that I actually don't hate this album. I think that it is significantly better than Old Star and Eternal Hails, as I've already alluded to. And I think as an end-to-end listening experience, I think it's potentially better than Arctic Thunder as well. I think it has a couple of excellent songs, and I'm even tempted to say that off the strength of those songs, I feel like some of those tracks that I have found less enjoyable at maybe the first 5 to 8 listens, I think I'm probably about 5 to 8 listens in now, those tracks I might even have the potential to grow on me. Who knows? It's not hate them. It's not a blaze in the northern sky, but this is about as close to a return to form as I think anyone could reasonably expect of Darkthrone in 2022, and that's not a bad thing. I'm pretty happy with that. And I suspect that for the die-hard Darkthrone fan, there's going to be a lot to like about this record. So, were we scoring this, and I don't normally score reviews, but I would say we're dealing with a probably very solid 7 to 7.5 out of 10. Not a classic, but by no means a bad record, and definitely a lot better than I expected after my first airing of that opening single. I'm going to play my favorite track off the record right now. I mentioned it earlier. It's called The Sea Beneath the Seas of the Sea. The Sea Beneath the Seas of the Sea is a song title that sounds very much like it was spawned from the imagination of Napoleon Dynamite. However, musically, Darkthrone definitely mean business, and I really like that song. I like that song, and as I said, I think the album is not bad at all. Let me know what you think in the comments, and once again, I will post the link to their Bandcamp in the description to the podcast, and if you do go and buy yourself some music, then do let them know that they are at least partially forgiven by old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere for inflicting Old Star and Eternal Hails both upon me and upon the legacy of a stellar and highly influential discography. Now, my friends, sit back, brace yourself, send the weak running for cover, and send the woke back to their safe spaces, because this is my weekly news rant. Our odyssey begins on Metal Storm. The first headline reads, Vulvodynia premiere their new single, Artificial Divinity. Vulvodynia are a band out of my homeland of South Africa. I've said previously that in the main, the vast majority of South African metal bands I find to be, at best, or charitably, a complete and utter embarrassment. An embarrassment to both me and to the country, and in fact to their families. But Vulvodynia, everything I've heard so far by this band is actually pretty good. And I'm glad they got signed. I'm not surprised they got signed. I think they make quality music. I have not heard Artificial Divinity yet, so I may very well retract my opinion depending on the quality of the single. But let's hear what it's about. Love it. I absolutely love it. Right at the start, it was a little bit sketchy, but then when those kind of melodic guitar licks come in, a little kind of smattering of atmosphere on the bit that we just listened to there, I think it gets really, really good. I was also about to make nasty jokes about the fact that the name Vulvodynia sounds like some sort of vaginal disease. It turns out that it actually is a vaginal disease. The NHS defines Vulvodynia as persistent, unexplained pain in the vulva. The vulva is the female genital area, including the skin surrounding the opening of the vagina. I'm very surprised that they even dare to use the word female on an NHS website, but that's a topic of discussion for another day, possibly another podcast. But yeah, good work from my countrymen. It's not often that I have good things to say about South African metal bands, and frankly, in my opinion, with good reason. As I've said before, I think the core of the problem with bands in South Africa is that everything is run as a democracy, and because what you tend to find is you'll look at a photo of the band and you'll see there's one guy wearing an In Flames t-shirt, one guy wearing a Lamb of God t-shirt, one dude wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt, and then there'll always be one guy wearing some obscure fucking black metal t-shirt or whatever. And the music always ends up sounding like just a confused mashup of all of those bands. And so, on top of that, you also get, some of the folks, and I won't name names. One of the bands might be they have the words dream and nightmares in their name, but they're not the cleverest bunch. So they also come up with idiotic song titles, song names, song lyrics, and it's just stuff that just it makes me cringe. Vulvodynia does not make me cringe, so they've already won me over there. But then, like I said, I mean, this is genuinely world-class music. I love it. I think it's very cool. Let's listen to some more. Yeah, very good stuff. They remind me a little bit of Beneath the Massacre, and the other thing they've reminded me about is that I'm recording this on Friday, the 28th of October. There is a new Despised Icon EP that has been released. Depending on how many songs we have to listen to on Metal Storm, we might head over to YouTube to check that out on spec, because I haven't listened to it yet. Katatonia announced new album Sky Void of Stars. The first single, Atrium, has launched. Sweden's Masters of Melancholy, Katatonia, have announced the release of their 12th studio release entitled Sky Void of Stars. The album will be their first for new label Napalm Records and is scheduled for release on the 20th of January 2023. Check out the first cut from the record, Atrium, below. It has been a while, I must confess, since I've actually enjoyed anything that Katatonia have done. They went through a period of time where they were trying to sound like a slightly gothy version of Linkin Park to me. And the glory days of the Discouraged Ones, Brave Murder Day, and albums like that, we know it's long behind them. And I understand why. I'm pretty confident that you play this track or any of the recent stuff they've put out to the average buffoon on the streets, and they're going to find that a heck of a lot more acceptable than they're going to find anything on Brave Murder Day. For myself, and I suspect for the Into the Necrosphere legions, that is not quite the case. But that being said, not heard anything of this new record. We might be in for a surprise, as we've already experienced many times in 2022, including with this new Darkthrone record. So let's check this out. That is not half bad. I don't know whether it's going to rocket up to the top of my most anticipated list, but I've got to say I was expecting complete and utter twaddle. I was expecting music sung by men who have turned to veganism and identify as feminists. But like I said, I actually don't mind that at all. I think it's pretty cool. Quite catchy, nice production, and definitely it sounds like it's moved away. And maybe I'm speaking out of complete ignorance here, and I need to go back and listen to those previous records. But it sounds like it's moved away at least just a little bit from baiting the Linkin Park gang. So let's get back to it.
Down is complete. You turned away despite my loving. Time is burning slow. You beckon on the way as you walk through the exit door, while estimating the losses rising. The venom in the glasses, I need more. Yeah, you still feel good about it. You say you need to feel good about it. Still riddled with spite. Languages divide as we walk through the corridor. We sing to the night.
I think that is deserving of a solid B grade. They may be stripped of their cult credentials. I mean, they have been stripped of their cult credentials for a while now. But yeah, like I said, I don't mind that at all. Okay, big news. Immortal have completed their 10th studio album. It says here, Norwegian black metal band Immortal announced that they have completed work on their new studio album. The band's 10th full-length, War Against All, features 8 new Immortal tracks and is scheduled for release in 2023 through Nuclear Blast Records. I could swear that they were going to put this out in November. But I might be wrong. I might be dreaming that. The effort was produced by Arve Isdal and recorded at Conclave and Earshot Studio by Herbrand Larsen and Arve Isdal, while Iver Sandoy at Solslottet handled the mastering. Apologies to everybody whose names I just mispronounced. The album's cover art was supplied by Matthias Frisk. It says here, founder Demonaz shared. Immortal continue the style that was established and defined on our very first records. It's fast, furious, epic, and mighty Blashker metal, the one and only way. Even though the studio work is necessary to get an ultimate recording, the writing process is obviously my favorite. I still write all the guitars, riffs, music at home with the same old vibe, and the lyrics as well. The early days of black metal inspire me the most. Cold nights in the woods, on the mountains, under the winter moon. That's what keeps the spirit alive and all the foundation to our music. The album cover looks pretty decent. I actually did not mind that last Immortal record. I know it didn't get a lot of love, but for me, I thought it was good. Now, I have not gone back to it, a lot. I would say after it was released. I think I spent a fair bit of time with it in the first couple of weeks after it came out, but I haven't gone back to it over and over again, but I didn't mind it, and I am looking forward to hearing what that new Immortal looks like. Plus, well, not looks like, sounds like. Plus, if they're putting it out on Nuclear Blast, who knows? Old Jackson might be able to get someone from the band on the podcast. So let's keep our fingers crossed for that. Detrimentum have lost their mastermind, Tor Eriks Anderson. Sad news. I again don't really know Detrimentum, but it says here, Detrimentum have lost their mastermind, Tor Erik Anderson, as he has passed away. The news was also confirmed by another Norwegian band called Harm, where he held vocal and guitar duties. Rest in peace to him. As I said, I don't really know Detrimentum, but I do read, or it sucks when you read, of anyone who's dying well before their time is due. So, yeah, sad news about that. Anyway, let's move on. The Sword have called it quits after 7 full-length albums. Texas Doomstoners from Texas. The Sword, again, mind blown by the way that some of these PR releases are written. Anyway, they've decided to call it a day. Frontman John D. Cronise announced it on their Instagram channel. He comments, "Hello friends, I find it my duty to inform you, after much contemplation, I've reached the difficult conclusion that it's time to bring the Sword's long and storied career to a close. When I started the band back in 2004, I could have only hoped for the successes we've enjoyed, and I consider myself extremely lucky to have been able to do it for a living for almost 2 decades. In that time, everything I ever wanted to say and do with the Sword creatively has been said and done, and so the time has come for me to move on to other endeavors. Thanks to everyone who's ever come to a show, bought our albums and merch, and supported us over the years. Thanks to everyone who's teched, tour managed, done sound, or sold merch for us. Thanks to all the bands who've taken us on tour and to all the bands we've taken on tour. Thanks to all the promoters and venues. It goes on like that for a while. It's been a hell of a journey. Now it's time for the next chapter. Who knows what that next chapter will be? Either way, I quite like the Sword. I'm sorry to see them go. I expect to greet the news of their impending reunion with some degree of excitement. I make a prediction 2025 is when they will get back together. Paradise Lost members announce new host project, released first single. We spoke about that last week, and I could not contain my excitement. Absolutely fantastic. It says here, Paradise Lost founding members Nick Holmes, Greg McIntosh have announced a new musical project called Host, named after their somewhat divisive 1999 album of the same name. I think somewhat divisive is a gross understatement. I remember when that came out, people I knew were fucking incensed. I mean, they were reasonably incensed with 1 second. But it was Host that truly pushed them over the edge, and a lot of people I know never ever recovered after that. They never went back to listening to Paradise Lost, even though, they've obviously brought back the death metal influences. Their records post Believe in Nothing, or I should say actually post Symbol of Life, certainly much heavier. Much heavier even, you could argue, than Draconian Times and Icon, which are two very firm fan favorites. But I myself loved Host when it came out. I thought it was very different, but I had come to expect different from Paradise Lost. And so when it came out, I embraced it. And I'm glad I did, because I liked it when it came out. I have not ever stopped liking it. And I've always loved the fact that Paradise Lost do a bunch of different stuff. I will also make a prediction. My sense is, and Carl Ikara and I spoke about this briefly on Soul Knox as well, I feel like with the musical endeavors that Nick and Greg have got outside of Paradise Lost, they've got the really kind of doomy death metal with Strigoi. They've got Nick has got the old school death metal with Bloodbath. Then they've got Host. I sense, I might be wrong, but again, another prediction, the next Paradise Lost record is going to be a return to the sound of Draconian Times. Sisters of Mercy influenced metal is what I think we're going to hear, and again, I'm down for it. Anyway, one band who you will never hear incorporate anything remotely Sisters of Mercy-esque or goth or by any way sweet or nice, Destroyer 666 have shared another new single. Black Thrash Outlaws Destroyer 666 will be releasing their 6th studio album, Never Surrender, on December the 2nd via Season of Mist. The band is now sharing a vicious new single, Androst. The band explained of the single, an ode and offering to the gods and goddesses of war. I'm down with that. I actually know the song already, but I'll give you guys a little whiff. Pretty much what we've come to expect from these guys. I think that's superb. I love that song. The kind of thrash is there, the black metal's there, The sense of antisocial hate, spite, and violence is definitely present. KK sounds in fine form. I absolutely love it. Of course, Metal Twitter has not been so kind. I was looking for a couple of comments on my timeline to see if there were any gems that I could share with any of you, but it mostly ranges from the typical KK is a dickhead, I hate Destroyer 666, Destroyer 666 are evil, white supremacist, Nazi, etc., etc. Nothing that anyone with any common sense should pay any attention to. But it does say, here we've got Nebraska anti-fascists saying, did the Pit ever address employing the Season of Mist PR person to host their flagship podcast, knowing the Season of Mist roster included the Pedo Inquisition, NSBM, Destroyer 666, and Rudka? Of course, they're talking there about my friend KT Rosari. So to the Nebraska anti-fascists, go fuck yourselves. Trying to see what else is here. Someone called Corvus Corone says, yeah, it sucks because there's a few good bands on there I want to have leave the label because I can't in good faith support them when Season of Mist has shit like Revenge, Destroyer 666, Phil and Salbo and Drudka on their roster. And yeah, if you look far enough, you can see all sorts of mucky muck like that. But nothing that, like I said, should concern anybody with half a functioning brain. From my perspective, I think this is very cool. I'm glad Destroyer 666 are back. And as I said, I've heard the whole album. One thing I can divulge, we did try and make a KK Warslut appearance on the podcast happen. However, unfortunately, for reasons that I will keep in the inner circle, it did not happen, and I understand why. I mean, there's absolutely no hard feelings. KK doesn't really do long form podcasts anyway, so this would have been a big deal to have him on the show. Most likely would have got me a load of flack and sobbing from various people, but he seems to me like a reasonably interesting dude. I would have liked to have spoken to him, but sadly I'm not able to do so. So be it. In the meantime, we will just revel in their music, and I'll give you guys another 60 seconds before we move on to our next object of scrutiny. I mean, right around that point of the song, there's some carnage taking place in the pit. I saw another very funny comment on Twitter as I was scrolling through my newsfeed. Somebody just referred to Destroyer 666 as Fox News black metal. So, and of course, again, the accusations of Nazi were hurled around. I would not be surprised if the hysteria from the fringes of the woke left intensify over the course of the next couple of weeks, because of course the United States midterms are upon us, and for some insane reason, the rest of the world I have to admit, including myself, gets particularly excited about any sort of American election. And so I imagine that some of the unemployed and unhosed of the United Kingdom, of which there are many, are going to suddenly have very strong, albeit highly ill-informed views of people like Ron DeSantis. But anyway, to my American friends, here's what I would say about voting. Rather than listen to the propaganda arm of either of the parties on Fox News and MSNBC, go onto a website called I Side With. So I'll actually bring it up here for those of you guys that are watching. There's a website, a brilliant website actually, called isidewith.com. I'm, of course, not in any way sponsored by these guys. I'm just giving you guys just a bit of advice. It's something that helped me a lot, and I've given this to a lot of folks, and a lot of people have come away from actually doing the quiz on iSide with some really I think fascinating and surprising insights about themselves. But anyway, long and short of it is, you take a quiz, and it then pairs you up to the candidates who your views most align to. And the cool thing is, if you want to learn more about anything, you can click on learn more. So first question on the presidential quiz for 2024, this is for America, and you can do it, you can tailor it to the UK, or I think a couple of other countries. Domestic policy issues: should there be more restrictions on the current process of purchasing a gun? And then you can go into learn more, and they'll give you a view on maybe a couple of things that you want to read to inform yourself. You can answer yes, no, or you can put in other stances. Were this me, I would put in other stances. I would say yes, require strict background checks, psychological testing, and training. So that would be my stance on what's them. And then you can also give a weighting to the answers. So you can say, how important is this to you? And you can go from least to most. Next question: should teachers be allowed to carry guns at school? You've got yes, no, and you've got other stances. My answer to that one would be no. Should victims of gun violence be allowed to sue firearms dealers and manufacturers? Once again, you've got yes and no. My answer to that is no. And then you can select more domestic policy questions if you want. If you want, you can just do like a very short or shortened quiz, and then at the end of it, you click to process it, and it gives you your answer. It'll show you like a percentage match. I won't necessarily share who I've matched closest to, but I will give you a spoiler. It was neither Trump nor Joe Biden. Anyway, right, let's move back on to music talk. Again, if you're a fan of Destroyer 666, get excited about their forthcoming Fox News black metal album, because it is very, very good. Next up, we've got Depressed Mode, who are releasing a new EP later in 2023. Finnish symphonic doom death metal band Depressed Mode is set to release a new EP, Words of Death, later in 2023 via Inverse Records. The first single, Suffer in Darkness, is a re-recorded version from Ghost of Devotion album, which came out in 2007. The female vocals are sung by Gogo Maloney this time. Gogo Maloney sounds like she's a bit of fun. Anyway, it says here, Otto Salonen comments, Suffer in Darkness was one of the first ever tracks for Depressed Mode. It was something that created the sound for the band, and I've been trying to recreate the atmosphere ever since. That's one of the reasons why we've decided to re-record the song, because I always felt like the song ain't complete without its orchestrations. Now I had the time and tools to create the atmosphere once again, and now it's enhanced. We once again hired our former drummer, Marco Tamilla, to create drums for the whole EP, and this was the first song re-recorded. I don't know Depressed Mode. I do love me some Depeche Mode. Let's hear what Suffer in Darkness sounds like. I'm not sure if I'm feeling those whispered vocals, but I do really like the melody. I like the ambience and the atmosphere of the song very much, and I think that piano that they've got kind of accompanying the guitars, I think that works. I like the production as well. I like everything about it. I just, as I said, the whispered vocals, I'm not so down with that. I mean, it's one thing to have some spoken word or whatever the case may be. Maybe have some whispered vocals as part of the song, but I mean, we were up to like 1 minute 10 seconds there, and it sounded like they were nowhere near finishing up with the whispering. So I'm going to skip ahead to 3.5 minutes in, and let's hear whether or not this man has found his voice. That is pretty good. The death metal vocals are good. I think that Gogo's voice sounds excellent. So I'm going to have to check out some Depressed Mode. Like it very, very much, actually. Okay, I think this brings us back round to where we ended up, or where we started off last week with the news of Dodheim's Guard cancelling their tour. Whoever is updating the news at Metal Storm needs to cut the slack, because usually there's at least 4 or 5 pages when I do these. But anyway, let's take a strip over to Blabbermouth, to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. And then I also want to take a gander at the Pit, because it seems like they've got some pretty interesting stuff on there, at least some conversation starters. But first news here is Deftones frontman's Crosses announces permanent Radiant EP. I actually quite like Crosses. They did a fantastic cover of Q Lazarus' Goodbye Horses. And if you listened or watched My Dying Bride, Silence of the Lambs. Now, how the fuck I got those two confused, I don't know. If you watch Silence of the Lambs, the very famous, Would You Fuck Me, I'd Fuck Me scene, Q Lazarus is playing there. That's the song they cover. And they do a really, really good job of it. Anyway, moving on. Disturbed have shared a lyric video for Divisive title track. It's divisive to me that band still exists. They're absolute muck. John 5 has joined Motley Crue. Apparently Mick Mars has retired. He does look like he's straight out of the Addams Family, so I suspect it's probably health related, and probably a good thing that he decided to call it a day. Metallica's Kirk Hammett talks about his love of horror in a new episode of Metal and Monsters. He is starting to increasingly look like the slightly like Brian May of Queen was a teenage father, and the young son was called Kirk. But I do like Kirk very much. He's always seemed. I mean, even on an absolutely scathing pile of complete and utter garbage, and something that wounded me deeply, seeing Some Kind of Monster, he even came across as a nice guy on there. But that being said, I have spoken before about Some Kind of Monster, and it literally killed me to see that load of shit. To watch a man in James Hetfield that I had so much love and respect and, frankly speaking, adoration for as a young teenager, be such a sniveling fucking ass. It made me very, very depressed. I think is probably the nicest way to say it. And I don't think I could sit through it again. It was absolutely terrible. Butcher Babies are sharing the music video for the cover of Saweetie's Best Friend. Don't tell anybody, but Carla from Butcher Babies, sweet Jesus, I think that woman is absolutely stunning. And ironically, the next face I see is that of her boyfriend, Charlie Benante, who's a lucky man. It says here, Pantera's Santiago headlining show sells out, gets moved to 17,000 capacity arena. No fucking surprise there. I mean, if you thought that they were going to do a Pantera reunion and 500 people would pitch up, then you might want to lay off the old ganja. Speaking of ganja lovers, renowned ganja partaker Max Cavalera and his brother Igor are outperforming Sepultura classics in Fort Lauderdale. Fan-filmed video of former Sepultura members Max Cavalera and Igor Cavalera performing several of the band's classic songs on October the 22nd at the Culture Room in Fort Lauderdale can be seen below. Featured tracks include Desperate Cry, Escape to the Void, Arise, and, of course, Beneath the Remains. This looks like cell phone footage, but cell phones aren't quite as dreadful as they used to be. So let's give this a quick listen. That sounds fucking fantastic. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And man, I've said this so many times on the podcast, but one of my favorite drummers live, without a doubt, one of the drummers I've enjoyed watching live most has been Igor Cavalera. I've had the pleasure of seeing him 3 times, once with Sepultura and twice with the Cavalera Conspiracy, and every single time there's a groove and there's a swagger to the way that he plays. He speeds up all of the songs just a little bit. There's a real feeling to the way he plays, and I just absolutely fucking love it. And you can hear it very clearly on that song. And even though this is a cell phone video, and we're not necessarily getting the best quality of this, Max sounds like he's on form. And the rest of the band also sound like they've got their acts together. So, that is one where I must confess that 1 minute clip that I have seen has sufficiently whetted my appetite that if they come and do this in the UK, I might Dwayne to travel down to London and book myself into a hotel so I can see this. It is hella busy in that venue, I'll tell you that much. You can tell it's Florida because they don't give a shit about COVID in Florida. They don't really seem to give much of a shit about COVID anywhere, barring where it's politically expedient for idiots and morons in the press to do so. But again, I'm not going to go down that. Myself and Rob obviously touched on it a little bit. An awful lot coming out in the wash if you guys have been keeping an eye on the news. But let's jump to midway through and see, or get a listen of one of the other songs that they played at this particular show. You know what I'm not hearing a lot about? Absent in Body. And I know that it carries with it the stain of Scott Kelly, but, it also has 3 other highly talented men that contributed to its production, and it is a fucking incredible record. And I really hope that people don't just overlook it off the basis of the fact that, Scott Kelly participated, and so therefore it's bad, and everyone should ignore it because Scott Kelly is a bad man who did bad things. And I thought about that randomly because of Igor's involvement in it. But yeah, I suddenly just popped into my head. King Diamond's Andy LaRock. We've got a lot of songs written for the Institute album. I don't know if I'm excited about that. Anthrax singer Joey Belladonna to relaunch his Journey tribute band with 3 shows in December. The other day, I was listening to something on Qobuz, and Qobuz does the same thing that Spotify does. You get to the end of a record, and the algorithm selects what you want to hear next. The person programming the algorithm at Qobuz is not quite as skilled as the person at Spotify, because you do end up getting, you'll be listening to some, an Al Nathrak or whatever, and then you get to the end of the record and it throws up Trivium at you or something like that. So anyway, the other day it tossed into the mix the re-recording that they've done or that Anthrax have done for Madhouse, and I shit you not, I actually thought that somebody was taking the piss. When the song started, I couldn't figure out if the person or if Joey Belladonna was singing in English, and I thought that the song was a joke. And I actually looked down at my phone, and I was shocked to see that it was Madhouse. I know I've said it many times, but I cannot fucking understand how the band, or how anyone looks at this band and goes, they're better off with Joey Belladonna in the band, as opposed to John Bush. The mighty John Bush, a true gentleman and a guy who was an exceptional frontman and a fucking fantastic singer, versus Joey Belladonna, who can't hold a note, looks like a fucking poodle, and he's just not up to snuff. If this was like the old days, where the record labels dictated what you did, I'll tell them, boot this motherfucker, pay whatever you need to get John Bush back in the band. Albuquerque's metalhead mayor dons a Soulfly shirt while voting. Of course, Albuquerque's metalhead mayor is also a Democrat, which undoubtedly is why Borry has featured him. And, you would imagine quite a few people are going to look at that and go, I don't care about his policies. I'm just going to vote for him because he seems like a nice guy, which is one of the biggest problems with Western democracy, in my opinion. I'll tell you another thing. A couple of you have reached out to me about this offline, and I think it had to do with a few comments that I may have made on the news rant. But I think it is a very valid point that many of you have raised. There is a problem in the metal scene with people who identify themselves entirely by the music that they listen to. Their whole self-identity is wrapped up in what they listen to. They don't have any connection to the production of the art. They're not they don't play in the bands, and yet somehow the band defines them. You find this especially with people that listen to nonsense like Slipknot and Marilyn Manson and Black Veil Brides. Weirdly enough, you also find this a lot amongst the anime community. And so therefore, when you poke fun at any of those bands, or you dare speak ill of any of those bands, they take it so personally, they'll literally, threaten to kill you. Like, again, when, going back to my days of being a Facebook agitator, I got so many fucking death threats from, making ridiculous jokes about anime. I called anime demonic, and I misgendered Marilyn Manson and said, Marilyn Manson is a woman, and, I called the Black Veil Brides Black Veil Birds. People fucking lost it, and they threatened to murder me. They threatened me with doxing, with all sorts of crazy nonsense. But I do think it's very unhealthy. And I also think those people tend to be those folks, and again, we've touched on this on the podcast, but those folks that they go through their quote-unquote metal phase, and then when they get to the end of, when their social life changes, or when their fortunes go a little bit better, then they quote-unquote grow out of it. And I don't think they were ever into metal to begin with. They just have issues, and the metal scene is a reasonably accepting crowd, and we accept even the biggest losers, including people that would vote for somebody because he wears a fucking Soulfly t-shirt. All right. Devil Drivers Des Fafara calls out Bruce Dickinson over dope smoking comments. This was some funny shit. So Bruce Dickinson, I believe he's in his mid-60s now. He has very much become the old man who sits on his front porch with a shotgun, chasing the kids away who dare encroach upon his lawn. It says here, at Maiden's September 21st show at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, the 64-year-old Dickinson took a few minutes to excoriate a handful of people who were allegedly smoking weed right in front of him and his bandmates while they were playing. I don't know what it is, the governor told, or the singer told the crowd. Why did I call him governor? The singer told the crowd, as seen in a viral video on YouTube. There's so many fucking people smoking so much fucking dope down here. I'm amazed you cunts can even see. Poor old Steve. I don't know if you know, but he absolutely fucking hates the gear and the smell of it, alright? So when he's trying to play bass, it fucks him up. And it fucks me up, you stupid pricks. I'm a singer, alright, so da. Let's find the viral video if they have it here, and let's see how far away my impression was of Old Man Bruce.
Idiot out of 10,500 people. Oh my god, and he's got a big ass as well. I don't know.
That is fat shaming, Bruce. I hope you know you've just lost a sizable proportion of those very same people that are going to vote for the whoever that dude was wearing the Soulfly t-shirt in New Mexico.
I don't know what it is. I mean, you know, there's so many people smoking so much fucking dope down here, I'm amazed you can even see. Poor old Steve, you know, I don't know if you know, but he absolutely fucking hates marijuana and the smell of it, right? So when he's trying to play bass, it fucks him up. So it fucks me up. I'm a singer, right? So if you got, I would just ask, tiny bit of respect. If you want to go and get completely stoned out of your fucking mind, go out the back and do it. Alright? Otherwise, you...
Turns out my impression wasn't too far off. Also, you know what the ultimate troll would have been? Tell everybody to put out their joints and then whip out one yourself. But I've never thought much of Bruce. He's always seemed like a bit of a dickhead to me. And I mean, he's a very, there's no doubting that he's a very gifted singer. And he's clearly a very smart man. I mean, you know, he can do an awful lot of stuff, even though that meme of, you know, all of his many accomplishments, that it's a little tired. But that being said, you know, to lecture the audience like that, I don't know. I definitely don't think he won all that many fans from it. Des Fafara berates him, of course. He says, "It's a concert, bro. People smoke weed. When he's in that concert hall, he thinks it's his, but it's not. It's the people who bought the tickets, not the band's. It's the people who bought the tickets' house, not the band's house. I've had this argument for years with bands, bro. You're in their town and their house. You're just a fucking guest." I mean, I tried my best to make sense of the illiterate muck that Des Fafara had written. No doubt he had smoked weed right before he sent that tweet. But long story short, apparently people in the concert hall can do whatever they want, and the band should just sit back and take it. Not sure I entirely agree with that, but I as I said, I also don't think you're exactly doing yourself any favors getting your feathers ruffled over a couple of people smoking weed. I mean, God forbid he plays a show where you know, the crowd behave like they do at a Biohazard gig. You know, half of them are on the fucking stage, you know, before the first song have even started. Let's check out one more, and then let's go check out the pit and see if there's anything there. Wasp's Blackie Lawless on his upcoming autobiography. It was a process of self-discovery, and yet he has still not discovered just how absolutely terrible he looks with the makeup that he insists on putting on, even though he is a man in his 60s. I mean, it's almost as inexplicable as Bruce Dickinson still wearing leather pants at the age of 64. I mean, I know he's in music, but Christ almighty. I mean, I don't think you should wear leather pants as a man, period. But if you are going to do it, there comes a time when those things need to be retired. In a new interview with Rockin' Metal Revival, Wasp leader Blackie Lawless spoke about the status of his long-in-the-works autobiography. He said, as transcribed by blabbermouth.net, when I sat down to start writing the book, it just poured out of me. And that was an interesting process too, because never having done that before, you always think of the first thing that comes to anybody's head is the things that stand out. But what I found more than anything is that it was a process of self-discovery. Because if you look at any given event that may happen in your life that's significant, we all have those signposts that point us in one direction or another. It's one thing to write about it, but to get to the root of it, what you have to do is go back and do some real self-examination and say, okay, what led me to this, and then what led me to that, and so forth. And when you do that, lengthy paragraphs of diatribe, which suggests to me that maybe that autobiography is going to be reasonably dull. But I might actually still want to check it out. I do, as I said before, I am a Wasp fan. No point in denying it. I have always been a Wasp fan. I think the Crimson Idol is fantastic. I think Inside the Electric Circus is great. I think Headless Children is superb. I think their Live in the Raw record is fucking brilliant. Beyond that, it gets dicey. And obviously, Christian Blackie is not my Blackie. But they've had some very cool stuff. All right, we'll wrap up and head over to the pit and check and see what they've got on here. Watch the new song from Japanese metal band Maximum the Hormone appearing in Chainsaw Man anime. At the risk of alienating anyone, I must confess I'm not really a big fan of Chainsaw Man. I'm not a really big fan of anime. I like Robotech, and there's a couple of other animes that I like. But I certainly don't get as fucking moist around the loins about anime as many other people do. Anyways, but I digress. Let's hear what Maximum the Hormone sounds like. I actually don't mind that. I think it's pretty funny. Am I going to listen to a whole album of it? No, but I don't think it's bad. This metal cover of the Halloween theme song is sick as hell. The band Orbit Culture created a cover of the classic Halloween theme song, except their version involves more industrial tones. I fucking love the soundtrack to Halloween. I think Trent Reznor did an amazing job with the version that he put out, and I know there's some additional music that was written by John Carpenter and his son, if I'm not mistaken. I also don't mind the new Halloween movie, Halloween Ends. I agree there's a couple of missed opportunities there, and I'm of the opinion that this should have been the second movie, and then maybe you can have a grandiose bloody finale as your third film. But I think they took a couple of risks. I think the risks paid off in part. I think they probably had some degree of interference from the studio, at least as far as the creative process is concerned, that maybe pushed them down a track that they wouldn't necessarily have gone down had it not been for the studio. And if you've seen the movie, maybe you'll understand what I mean. But I definitely would say ignore the hate online. It's not nearly as bad as people think. It's fucking way better than Halloween Kills. It is actually Halloween weekend for me. By the time you guys listen to this, Halloween would have been and gone. But I've got some fucking badass movies lined up and ready to watch this evening, tomorrow night and Sunday night. I've got Barbarian. I've got Terrifier 2. I've got Pearl. And then I have bought on 4K Blu-ray one of the greatest horror movies ever, The Thing. I have also bought the 4K Blu-ray remaster of Saw, and a guy who works for me gave me the 4K Blu-ray version of American Psycho. So I think I will be watching all of those this weekend. Barbarian is one I've been highly, highly anticipating, so I'm very excited about watching that, and I've heard the hype is real. Generally speaking, when my man Brandon Legion says good things about a movie, I pay attention, and I know he absolutely loves it. So, all right. Next up, we've got a video. Dave Mustaine once fought a supernatural firefighter in the show Black Scorpion. I have to say, there's no way that supernatural firefighter could have survived that fight, even if it was only for a TV show. So deadly is Dave Mustaine's Jitkindu skills. Corey Taylor once hit a professional wrestler in the face. Corey Taylor looks about the size of the professional wrestler's arm in the photo that they show here. And it also looks like he can't exactly throw much of a punch. Let's watch that, and we'll wrap it up for this week. So it says here, Slipknot frontman Corey Taylor is a fan of many things: horror movies, comic books, even wrestling, as well as commenting on everything under the sun. We bring wrestling up specifically because we stumbled across one hell of an interesting video involving the Slipknot singer hitting a pro wrestler in the face. At a past NXT Aftershock Festival event, Corey was in attendance and enjoying a wrestling match. At one point, the two wrestlers going at it find themselves outside of the ring. One of these wrestlers is that of NXT superstar Baron Corbin. After tossing the other wrestler to the side, Baron makes his way over to Corey Taylor, the latter standing up to confront Baron. It appears that Corey is rooting for the other wrestler, and Baron is not a fan of Taylor vocalizing his stance. Blah, blah, blah. It says, Baron goes on to say to Taylor, "You should stay seated, punk." He then goes on to talk more smack and then aggressively pokes Corey in the chest. This gets the Slipknot frontman riled up, and he yells, "If you're 5'5", I'm 6'6", yo," and hits Baron right in the face. After Baron takes that hit, the other wrestler comes over and attacks Baron. Talk about teamwork. We think it would be cool as hell if Corey wanted to give pro wrestling a try. As what, mate? Most of the fucking women can roll that guy up and smoke him. Do you think Corey would make a good wrestler? No. He certainly has one hell of a stage presence. In other wrestling-related news, we recently covered that Bray Wyatt has returned to the WWE, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's check this out. So Baron Corbin, and this was years ago because Corey Taylor still has his white supremacist haircut. Baron Corbin steps up to diminutive Corey Taylor, and chaos carnage ensues. So I think Bailey barking in the background, as you guys can hear, is probably more terrifying than Corey's punch. But yeah, for sure, I like stuff like that in wrestling. I like things that feel like they're unexpected. I mean, even though he most likely set that up with Baron beforehand, but that punch was a little bit lame. All right, friends. On that note, let's wrap things up for this week. Thank you very much for sticking around until the very end of the show. Huge thanks to my guest, Rob Watkins. Make sure you check out Soul Furnace when it gets released. Pre-order it in the meantime at their Bandcamp and show a well-deserving band some love and support. Next week, I have got another Season of Mist act scheduled to be my guest. I've got Paul Delaney of Black Anvil. I have also got in the pipeline Matt Prizzo and Kelly T of Slaves to the Underground podcast and a band called Spells of Torment. We're going to be talking about a lot of interesting stuff on that conversation. I've got a few others in the pipeline as well. And then on December the 6th, it will be my final episode of 2022 before I jet off to South Africa for a month of sun, steak, red wine, safari, and not giving a fuck. But in the meantime, my friends, I hope that whatever it is that you are doing, wherever it is that you are staying safe and healthy. I'm going to play out with a song by Power From Hell, a fantastic band on Deborah Morty Productions. They've just put out a record called Shadows Devouring Light. This is the title track off that record, and I play it to you as I head off into the sunset, hoping that the dog isn't going to burst into a fit of barking again and fuck up the recording of my outro. But take care of yourselves. I will see all of you bad motherfuckers again next Tuesday.